good morning. Welcome to the Badger Den. We've got a lot to get into. First, let's go over the conflict and what's been happening. Again, there have been salvos going from Iran to Israel. Israel's been loading up munitions in their warplanes and going over and bombing the crap out of Iran. That's been going on for several days now, and it's continued to go on per prior streams for days, weeks. Now they're talking maybe even months. Don't think so, but definitely over the next week, we will continue to see this back and forth where Israel's bombing Iran. Iran is shooting missiles into Israel. So, right now, President Trump has said that the U.S. might not stay on the sidelines if conflict between Israel and Iran continues and escalates. Israel has been begging the U.S. for the use of our aircraft support and specifically bunker busters to be able to bomb hardened targets in Iran. We have been telling them no. We've been saying we need to stay out of this. But now Trump's kind of wavering and saying, hey, if this doesn't end soon, maybe we could start giving munitions over to Israel. I got a feeling this is to help nudge Iran to the negotiation table. Trump made it clear that while there had been no U.S. involvement thus far, he was not ruling out the possibility that there could be at some point. No, there's no deadline, but they are talking. Speaking of Iran, they'd like to make a deal. They're talking. They're continuing to talk. Something like this had to happen because I think even from both sides, but something like this had to happen. They want to talk. They will be talking. May have forced a deal to go quicker, actually. This goes back to where Trump set them a deadline on nuclear deal negotiations. Then the International Atomic Agency came out and said, hey, look, they do have enough fissile material to make it like 6 bombs. Israel's claiming 9. Let's say somewhere in between the middle, say 7. So they do have enough fissile material to quickly continue to enrich and make some nuclear weapons. Hence, when they didn't come to the table, Israel bombed them, and Trump probably knew that was going to happen. Those probably talks between Israel and Trump, where Trump was like, look, I'm going to try to get to the table. If I don't, we need to take out the centrifuges. You're probably going to do your thing. I get it. But after that, we need to negotiate after the bombings commenced. There is some other items going on in the background. The president then said that Putin had pitched the idea that he could serve as moderator. This is probably a call between Putin and Trump on his birthday. Between Israel, Iran, and Trump said that the idea was at least worth considering. I would be open to it. He is ready. He called me about it. We had a long talk about it. We talked about this more than his situation. This is something I believe is going to get resolved. Again, Trump and Putin are expected to talk later this week regarding the Russia-Ukraine war, hoping that conflict has to come to some sort of end, get out of this proxy war situation. But on the flip side, now Putin's saying that he might be able to broker a peace between Israel and Iran with Trump, which would be fantastic. We all want this to end because a nuclear conflagration is insane. Trump posted this over the weekend. Iran and Israel should make a deal. He's emphasizing trade. I don't think Trump understands the type of dogma that some of these hardcore Muslim nations are indoctrinated into. It is insane if you look up the amount of percentage of the population that are radical. The two excellent leaders who were able to quickly make a decision and stop, this is specifically talking about Pakistan and India. He also goes on to mention he helped broker something between Serbia and Kosovo, Egypt and Ethiopia, and Trump emphasizes that peace soon will be between Israel and Iran. I hope so. This goes back to a point I made earlier that I think the real function of this is to topple the Iranian government. Israel specifically targeted, with the help of the Mossad, the upper echelon and leaders within Iranian military. If you take out enough of those and create a power vacuum, you're hoping to generate internal strife. If Iran cannot hold their leadership, military leadership, together and they fall apart and start attacking each other, then all of a sudden it starts into a civil war. I think that is Israel's goal. Netanyahu told Fox News' Brett Baier on June 15th that regime change could certainly be the result because the Iranian regime is very weak. Totally true, because again, you have all this power concentrated in a few people. You cut the heads off. What happens? Creates that power vacuum, and you start having infighting. We're geared to do whatever is necessary to achieve our dual aim to remove two existential threats, the nuclear threat and the ballistic missile threat, Netanyahu told Bayer, adding that Israel is trying to protect the world from this incendiary regime. This goes back to where Trump now has come out, allegedly, from Reuters, that there was a plan on the table by Israel to take out the Ayatollah. That, again, feeds into my theory that the whole goal of this was to create an internal civil war within Iran by Israel, stage a coup. The official, speaking on anonymity, told U.S. officials have been in constant communications with Israel officials in days since Israel launched a massive attack on Iran in a bid to halt its nuclear program. Goes back to that we kind of knew what was going on, but again, we were not directly involved. They said the Israeli reported that they had an opportunity to kill the top Iranian leader, but Trump waved them off the plan. The officials would not say whether Trump himself delivered the message, but Trump has been in frequent communication with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump on Friday claimed that the U.S. knew everything about the Israeli attack on Iran before it happened. Again, goes back to where shows that we evacuated non-essential embassy staffers, made several warnings. The moment the attack happened, Rubio came within like an hour or two to immediately state we were not involved. We knew it was coming, but we didn't do anything specifically to or have a hand into it. Again, feeding in this theory, Iran cuts off the internet. Musk then turns on Starlink. Mark Levin, we all know who he really supports. Elon Musk can put the final nail in the coffin of the Iranian regime by providing Starlink internet to the Iranian people. Iran cut off all internet so that the people cannot organize a coup and communicate. Totally true. The beams are on per Elon Musk. Elon Musk has cut on Starlink for people of Iran. Specifically, they're hoping to create civil unrest to further destabilize the current regime in Iran. I believe that's the ultimate goal. Right now, what is happening today is overnight, Iran now has been using, they've been using some hypersonic missiles, but these new missiles that they've been doing, not sure what they've done specifically, but the Iron Dome has, on this latest salvo by Iran, is now shooting its own missiles out of the sky. The hypersonic missiles are getting through some of them and are hitting their targets. Previously, Israel has now shifted to attacking Iranian infrastructure, specifically oil fields. Iran now is shooting at power plants within Israel. Tit for tat, unfortunately, and that's what's happening, is that they're attacking each other's infrastructure, and the Iranian hypersonic missiles are beginning to get through with this new tactic they're taking. Also, I mentioned previously that Iran does have military control of the Strait of Hormuz. GPS within that region is beginning to be shut off. Unsure who is doing this. Is it Iran? Is it Israel? Again, this does not impact the U.S. directly, but it will impact oil prices throughout the world and specifically impact Asia in particular. Keep an eye on that. So, we all know about the Democratic terrorist that has shot a House representative and her husband, who both passed on. She was the bold, brave woman who voted to stop illegals from receiving Medicaid in Minnesota illegally. She stopped it, and now she is dead for standing up for the right thing. This man also attempted to kill a state senator in Minnesota and his wife. They are survived, and they are in the hospital recovering. They're expected to make a full recovery. Watched a update from the police yesterday, late last night, before the suspect was caught. This is from the superintendent of police and the interview, this hour-long interview. At the moment this was published, they were still searching with a nationwide federal warrant. Person is now captured. They were captured late last night. Assumed he has attempted to flee the country. He was actually found in Minnesota. Unsure how he was traveling. They were suspected that he was either being transported by somebody, had his own vehicle that they did not know about, or he was actually traveling on bicycle or foot. So they had basically no clue. FBI had offered a $50,000 reward. During the interview, they were already attempting to play down what the motive was, even though there was already a ton of evidence that got leaked. I go back to point out, why wouldn't they release the manifesto of the shooter at the Christian school. They're saying it's not a manifesto. However, they specifically in their interview state the notebook found in the shooter's car was comprised a lot of his own personal thoughts, but should not be considered a manifesto. I believe it should. It contained two specific things. One, his internal thoughts and motivations, even though they're saying it's not a manifesto, and it contained a supposed list of targets. That got confirmed in the interview. However, when he was specifically asked to answer what items were found in the car, he refused to answer. So they would not confirm that there were no King's flyers, even though there's already pictures online showing that there were. Refused to answer if there was a manifesto. Again, playing out that, well, it wasn't a manifesto, it was a journal. It was a manifesto and a list of targets. They did confirm that this was also true. After further questions, the superintendent eventually did admit that there was a book in the car that had a lot of thoughts regarding the shooter and why he was doing what he was doing, a manifesto. Admitted there was a list of people recovered in the car. This list was assumed to be a target list. The police had met with multiple family members as part of the protocol. None were in custody. Everybody specifically looking at the wife. The wife was caught with money in her car, ammunition, and passports. Why? But again, she was not arrested. Again, none of those things are necessarily illegal, but I'm sure it sent off a bunch of red flags with anybody with common sense. Other persons of interest are being reviewed. Again, this doesn't make sense that this man was working alone for him to get away the way he did. The biggest thing everybody's pointing out is that this man was found at a home. He was shot at by multiple police officers, ran back into the home. This is an older guy, and somehow evaded multiple police officers who clearly shot, oh my goodness, at least a dozen rounds into the front door of this home where they were initially going to capture him, and then ran into the home unscathed, ran out the back and disappeared. It just doesn't make sense. But anyway, he has at least been caught. Going back to Hobbs, reported that Hobbs had vetoed a bill to allow Chinese or prevent Chinese from buying land here in Arizona. She has now unveiled a sweeping proposal to block U.S. land ownership by foreign adversaries, following her veto of a Republican-backed bill that targeted land purchases by entities linked to the CCP. Did she have a change of heart? No, she didn't. She criticized the bill as being too narrow in scope and failed to provide a clear criteria for implementation. Not true. That bill prevented all foreign entities from buying land in Arizona. The legislation expands restrictions beyond China to include all nations designated as foreign adversaries, such as Russia, North Korea, Iran, while authorizing the state to call the FBI to investigate land purchases suspected to be involved in espionage. Not true. The prior bill specifically prevented any other foreign nation from buying land in Arizona. So maybe she wants other nations that she might be getting funds from that are potentially our allies to buy property. Who knows? Just doesn't make sense. And you might say, well, Ryan, maybe she did have a change of heart. You would think that. However, forget what the Republicans are going to do. They're going to fail. They're pointing out here that the Democrats, none of them voted for the original bill, showing that they don't care about preventing China from gaining access to Arizona land near military bases and farmland. But Hobbs also vetoed a bill that would restrict the use of technology produced by Chinese companies and state-sponsored healthcare programs. So it's not that she's against China. What is she really doing? Which country is she really trying to protect? Specifically, the bill would have allowed insurance providers and Medicaid to limit coverage for genetic sequencing performed using equipment or software from companies based in foreign adversary nations. Again, these are companies identified by the DoD and linked to Chinese military. She vetoed that. So come on, Hobbs. Who are you really working for? Hobbs simply wrote that the bill was unnecessary without elaboration. Yeah. Hobbs also vetoed a bill which have prohibited the use of telecommunications technology manufactured in China. She did, though, sign a bill to end organ harvesting that allows insurers of Medicaid to deny or restrict coverage for patients seeking organ transplants in China, Hong Kong, or organs are suspected of being basically be harvested. Hobbs has no morals. What is she really up to? Which country is she really trying to protect? Which companies is she trying to protect in China? Want to warn everybody about this. The Fed is continuing to show that they are very partisan. The reason why I say that is, again, Veritas has caught a senior staffer that works for Powell at the Fed openly stating that Powell hates Trump, intentionally tried to derail the economy under Trump's first term. What do you think Powell's trying to do again? The Treasury now has just executed the largest bond buyback in history. So we are issuing Treasury bonds. Nobody is buying them. We are having an adversarial relationship with China. China's not buying our debt anymore. Japan's in the toilet. They're another big buyer. Russia, they're not doing it anymore. Both Russia and China are part of BRICS, and they're trying to get out of the dollar and get their own gold standard. We have alienated the world. Nobody wants U.S. debt. So guess who's trying to buy it now? The U.S. Treasury. That is a bad move. Do you know what other countries did that? Zimbabwe. Do you know what happened there? Look up hyperinflation. It's not a good practice when your own government buys its own debt to prop up its own currency. That's bad, guys. Whatever dollar bills you've been stuffing in mason jars, get them out. Go buy some silver. Get it now. This is a huge red flag. It's not quantitative easing by name, but it sure acts like it. This is Obama all over again. This is Biden all over again. Thankfully, $10 billion isn't a huge sum. I mean, it is, but in the scheme of trillions of dollars that we have in debt, it's not a good sign. If this continues on, we're going to start seeing inflation come roaring back. I wasn't expecting inflation to come back for another year. This makes me think if we continue down this path, it will come back sooner than later. But mark my words, inflation will be back in the next year or two. I'm thinking late next year, we will start inflation really beginning to creep up, provided we don't start making serious cuts. Rescission packages, trimming down the debt. Let's pray, guys. I really hope that we see some changes. Happy Monday. Dig you later.